Welcome to the Explainer. So Anthropic just dropped their new AI model, Claude Opus 4.7, and they're touting it as a major upgrade. But if you listen to the user community, they're calling it something else entirely, a downgrade with a sneaky price hike. So what's the real story here? Let's break it all down.
In this comment right here from the Claude AI subreddit, it gets right to the heart of the whole conflict. You see, users aren't just debating technical specs. No, they're questioning the model's actual value and, frankly, their trust in the company. This is the core issue we're really going to unpack.
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, we're going to look at what Anthropic officially promised. Then, we'll dive headfirst into that community backlash and the whole hidden cost thing that caused it. And finally, we'll weigh the promise against the actual real-world performance. Right, so back on April 15th, 2026, Anthropic announces Claude Opus 4.7. Let's start with their side of the story. What exactly did they say this new model was all about?
So their official messaging was really specific. This isn't some revolutionary brand new thing. Think of it more as a fine-tuning, a specialized upgrade. It's aimed squarely at professional users and developers who need an AI that can tackle those really tough marathon tasks without getting confused.
And Anthropic backed all this up with a list of specific tangible improvements that were designed to appeal directly to their most serious power users.
On paper, this list is pretty compelling, right? We're talking about a model that's supposedly a much better coder, has dramatically better eyesight for looking at images, and gives developers way more control over both cost and performance.
And this vision upgrade is just huge. We're not talking about a small bump. It's a more than threefold increase in resolution. This means the model can now analyze dense technical diagrams or screenshots with tiny text. Things that were basically just a blurry mess for the last version.
And this little table perfectly illustrates one of those new developer controls. This X high effort level, it's a new sweet spot, sitting right between deep thinking and maximum effort. It's designed for those really thorny problems like debugging super complex code without the crazy cost and slowness of the max setting.
So that's the shiny, official story. But almost as soon as it launched, the user community, especially over on places like Reddit, started telling a very different story.
Based on all those features, you would absolutely think so. It seems like a slam dunk, right? But the moment you start looking at the user reports and their experiences, some really serious cracks start to show up.
And here it is. This is the first major red flag that the community raised. This chart shows how it performs on something called the MRCR benchmark, which is just a fancy way of testing how well an AI can remember information from really long documents. Look at this. Opus 4.6 scored a pretty good 78%, but 4.7, it absolutely plummeted to just 32%. Now, Anthropic says they're phasing this test out, but for people who need that memory, this is a massive, massive step backwards.
The backlash really centered on a few key issues, from performance drops to features just straight up being removed. But the number one complaint, the one you hear over and over again in every thread, is about cost. People are just burning through their paid limits at an unbelievable speed. And that's what's really driving all this frustration.
So let's dig into that number one complaint, because it all comes down to a technical change happening under the hood, a change that has a very real and very frustrating financial impact for customers.
First, we just need a super quick definition. A tokenizer is the system that breaks your words down into little pieces the AI can actually understand. You can think of it like the AI's alphabet. And with Opus 4.7, Anthropic rolled out a brand new one.
And here's the catch. This new tokenizer, it's less efficient for certain kinds of text, especially computer code. So the same exact prompt can now use up to 35% more tokens. And since you pay for every single token, well, a lot of users don't see this as a technical update. They see it as a stealth price hike.
This user's comment, just dripping with sarcasm, it perfectly captures the shock that so many people felt. It's that feeling of just watching your resources evaporate in a way they never, ever did before.
And here you see the real-world consequence of all this. This isn't just a number on a chart. This is a paying customer on a premium plan who now finds the tool is, in their words, completely unusable for their job, all because their usage limits just vanish almost instantly.
So what we have here are two completely opposite stories. On one hand, you've got Anthropic's announcement of a refined, more powerful model. And on the other, you have this huge wave of user frustration over costs and regressions. So how do we make sense of this disconnect?
Well, this cynical but really popular theory making the rounds on Reddit tries to explain it. The basic idea is that the previous model, 4.6, was deliberately made worse, only for its original, more powerful version to be re-released as 4.7, but now with a higher price tag thanks to that new tokenizer.
Ultimately, you're left with these two fundamentally different stories. Anthropic is telling a story of careful progress and refinement. The user community, though, they're telling a story that feels more like a bait-and-switch, with higher costs and some really baffling regressions.
Now, for their part, Anthropic does acknowledge these token changes. Their official advice basically says that while their own internal tests look good, your mileage may vary. They're putting the responsibility on developers to test how the new model actually impacts their own specific projects and, of course, their wallets.
And this really leaves us with the big, central question. Are the official, on-paper upgrades, like that better vision and more developer control, worth the very real costs and regressions being reported by the community? For anyone looking to use this new model, that is the expensive trade-off they are going to have to figure out for themselves.